Midpoint is part of a new project that we started in South Africa, which is a platform in which opposition politicians and parties can show their substantive ability to engage with long-term megatrends in South African politics.
The state of the electorate in South Africa is a critical and always topical issue because of a trend we have begun to see in young voters not participating in universal suffrage.
I think that we've seen a lot of young South Africans opting out of politics as they don't see it as a means of resolving the issues that matter to them. People opt out of the political system and want to find expression for their views and opinions that often can manifest itself in radicalism external to the political system, and people finding other ways to express themselves or to be heard outside of the political arena. I think that, if one looks at the last election, the ANC essentially got elected with a 26% mandate from the people of South Africa. That's very, very low mandate. And the biggest opters out at that time were young people. And I think we've got to do far more to show young South Africans particularly that these platforms are relevant, and that if you do want to change your life, that voting, getting involved in politics, using the democratic process, making your members of parliament work for you and raise the issues that matter to you.
I'm an advocate of automatic registration, where the state takes an active role in getting people on the voters' roll. I think there must be a distinction made between automatic registration, where the onus is taken away from voters, to the state for registration, and then compulsory voting, which is actually an infringement on our right to choose to vote in the Constitution.
So I definitely think that for a non-performing incumbent governing party, I think there's a huge incentive that people don't register to vote.
But essentially, people are looking at the political system broadly, and they're understanding it as less responsive than it used to be. And that's been a massive deterrent to turnout. The school curriculum should probably start engaging these debates, and quite meaningfully, actually. So by the time people reach 18, we have a very clear understanding of what the role of an election is all about. It does seem that, particularly in municipalities where incumbents have done rather a poor job of governance, they are returned to power. But remember that this is coming off the back of smaller and shrinking sections of the electorate in that particular area. If you look at the data, it's very clear amongst all South Africans, Black South Africans, ANC partisans, if there is disgruntlement with the incumbents, they tend to withdraw their support. But the problem we have is a structural one in the party landscape, in the sense that South Africans struggle to make the journey from one party to another. The media and its messaging of party policy discussions is missing. We tend to overly focus on the attributes of candidates, the racial credentials of political parties and who they may or may not represent. And the policy alternatives are getting lost, particularly for younger people. Most young people say that they actually don't feel close to a particular political party. So we seem to be shaking off our partisan inclinations in this newest generation in South Africa, sort of born frees and post-born free. What's happening here is there's a disconnect between formal political party politics, conventional politics, the way young people understand political parties as vehicles for representation. And either political parties need to transform and reform, or young people will find other means to basically affect change in their countries.
So we've come across a number of problems with the IEC, but generally, by and large, I've found them to be very efficient and effective at doing what they needed to do. So I think if we want to have a culture of free and fair elections, then I'm afraid it means you've got to put your money where your mouth is and ensure that the IEC is properly funded so that it can continue the high standards of oversight, accountability, and ensuring free and fair elections going forward. And I'm certainly very excited about some of the things that were discussed today. And I think this needs to be an ongoing conversation that's had at every single sphere, whether it's civic society, schools, and by political parties themselves. We've got to get young people re-engaged in the system rather than having them opt out. It is their future that is essentially being decided in the corridors of Parliament as we speak. And they've got a choice. You either let other people determine your future for you, or you get stuck and make sure you're part of the conversation. So I think there's a lot of challenges here as well, particularly for opposition parties, but also a massive opportunity if we can get those voters activated and then out in numbers voting for change. I think it's a huge opportunity for opposition.